Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Please do continue dropping your name and where you're joining us from in the chat. We love seeing where everybody's coming from. We're super excited to have you all here joining us for today's panel. My name is Christy Mino. I work here in the Central Graduate Admissions Office, or the Office of Graduate Marketing and Admission Consulting. I'm joined today by our admissions officers from several different NYU graduate school and professional schools to share their insight into the graduate school admissions process. And so we're really excited that you're able to join us all and hear from our panel of experts. Um, in a few minutes, we'll turn off the chat, and then halfway through today's session, we'll open up the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. So we encourage you to send any of your questions in that way. I've got a list of prepared questions, but we'll also all be keeping our eye on that Q&A box to make sure we get through as many of those as possible. This event is recorded, and you will be receiving a recording after the event. So don't worry if you miss something important, you'll be able to go back and rewatch it. You'll also get an email from us with an opportunity to provide feedback. But if you also have any pending questions that we weren't able to get to, you can respond directly to that email, and we'll be sure to get it to the school or answer it ourselves if we're able to. And also closed captioning is available, so feel free to turn that on if you need it. And so with that, I'm going to ask our panelists to start by introducing themselves. We're going to give each of them a little bit of time to give a brief overview of their school, their programs, their admissions information, and things that are compelling about their program. And then we'll jump into some specifics about the admissions process and NYU schools and colleges in general. So the order we're going to go in, just based on how I have it on my screen, Tom will kick it off with you, and then we'll have Laura, Nadia, and Jamie go, just so everybody is aware of how we'll do it. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Kleinert, the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at NYU Steinhardt. I'm going to put my contact information into the chat for you all, but I'll post it at the end of this event as well. Our office is a resource to you. We do not make the decision on your application. Please reach out to us anytime, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You can email me directly. You can call me. You can come into our office. You can chat with us. You can set up one-on-one consultations with us. We are your resource to get your questions answered about our programs, in particular, the components of the graduate admissions application. I have 5 minutes to kind of tell you about all the wonderful things about Steinhardt. I'm in my 23rd year here, so obviously I like it. But Steinhardt's been around since 1890 in some capacity. We're most formally known as the School of Education at NYU, but we're much more than that. So Steinhardt has morphed into, since 1890, 195 degree programs, about 7,000 students, of which about 4,500 of those are graduate students. And we have 89,000 plus active alums who have earned our degree, most of them in the New York metropolitan area, but we're all over the world. We're proud of the research.
Time is frozen for me. Is that the case for anybody else? Okay, unfortunately. So we'll give him a second to reboot it.
Are you able to hear me?
Okay, yes, you're back.
Okay.
Carry on.
I am so sorry. Yeah, sometimes I go in and out, even though I am in my office at NYU Steinhardt. Sometimes I think I have too many windows open. Anyway, we have about 274 full-time faculty who are experts in their fields. And what we're also proud to share is 96% of our Steinhardt students from our master's and degree programs will find employment within 6 months of graduating from Steinhardt. We start with our mission, which I'll briefly share with you, that Steinhardt empowers students to build a better world through innovative programs in education, health, the arts, media studies. We connect theory to applied learning in New York City and countries around the world. We build communities within and beyond classrooms and nurture the human spirit. We're about diversity and inclusion, equity and belonging. I know I have 5 minutes. I'm going to cruise along here. What else should I tell you about Steinhardt? Again, we're a mishmash of programs, so much more than just education, but we're known for things such as media studies, which include a media culture and communication program, health. which physical therapy, occupational therapy, nutrition, counseling for mental health and wellness. I could go on and on. The arts, we have the music department, music and performing arts professions, and we have the art department, where we have things like dance education, costume studies. But first and foremost, we were known for starting with our education programs, whether it's international education, music education, science education, social studies education, things that deal with educational policy, things that deal with international ed. Check us out. Our programs are vast and varied. And due to the fact that we're this kind of a hodgepodge of different programs, we want you to explore different departments of Steinhardt. So you could be in a music business program and take a psychology course. And we also want you to explore other schools at NYU, which you might hear more from my colleagues. Rushing along, we are proud that U.S. News and World Reports boasts us as a top 10 school of education in the United States. That number changes from year to year, but we've remained within the top 10 for decades, I'd say. What makes us a top choice? We pride ourselves on those faculty who, again, I said, are experts in their field. We have 11 different academic departments, whether it's our nutrition, our occupational therapy, our teaching and learning. Your program of study will fall within a particular department, but again, you'll have the opportunity for most programs to take something outside of that department. I'm shifting ahead. Something that makes us unique is graduate study abroad. You will find that there aren't that many universities out there that as a graduate student, you'll have the opportunity to study abroad. By this, it's typically during our long January term, that's between our fall and spring semester, or during the summer. We've gone to Sweden, China, Ghana, South Africa, Cuba, Italy, Spain. Every year it changes. These are faculty-led courses that you'll get college credit towards your degree program. And, just a change of pace. Then even though whoever wants to leave New York, you can get out and still experience learning outside of New York. Rushing ahead here. One thing that our international students like to hear is that you may not think of Steinhardt for STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but we have things like games for learning, developmental psychology, our kinesiology program through physical therapy, our media, culture, and communication program, even our drama therapy program is considered STEM. So this gives our international students the ability to stay for what's called optional practical training, staying as long as 3 years after their academic program has come to an end. The resources we have at Steinhardt and throughout NYU are great. We have student clubs, a student government. We have international student clubs. We have clubs that recognize identity-based groups. We have health and wellness services. And just we have accommodations to help students with accessibility. And one of the resources that I was supposed to in my talk, we're very proud of a resource called the Wasserman Center for Career Development, which throughout your studies and even after you're a graduate, the Wasserman Center helps you with finding jobs, on-campus jobs, networking, resume writing workshops, what else? A photo booth that you can get headshots. And it's just a great space where you can even come hang out with other students. And a lot of people don't seem to take care of that until they're in their final semester, but it's available to you throughout your studies at NYU. I'm going. But we want you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate you're muted now. Sorry. So thank you for giving that overview. I think it's super helpful to hear there's so many wonderful programs at Steinhardt, and also for highlighting a lot of the different programs that are the resources that are available to all NYU graduate students. Thank you for bringing those to everyone's attention. I think that's super valuable to hear. Laura, I think you were next. So I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about Tisch.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura John. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the graduate admissions representative for Tisch School of the Arts. I was really excited when you all were introducing yourselves in the chat to see how many of you are interested in Tisch programs. So I'm really excited to connect with you and see your questions later. And please, as Tom had mentioned, I think my email is in the background that you can see my email, my phone number. So yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that you have during the application process. So Tisch School of the Arts, we offer master's and PhD programs that are related to the theater, film, and media arts across all those different areas. Our application for entry in fall 2025 is now open. The first major deadline for some of our programs is December 1st, and then different programs have different deadlines. So the deadlines run through February, depending on the program. So make sure you know what the deadline is for your program of interest. In terms of applying for admission, I like to think of the application as having like two separate buckets. If that visual helps me, and maybe it will for you as well, since we're all arts people. So the first bucket I think of is the general application requirements, and that's what everyone is going to submit regardless of what program they're applying for. So that's going to be things like your unofficial transcripts from your undergrad study, your resume, your statement of purpose, and your letters of recommendation. And then the other bucket is going to be the department-specific requirements. That's going to be where your creative component comes in. So for my grad acting folks, that's your audition. For like my grad film folks, that's your portfolio. That's the writing sample for dramatic writing or for cinema studies or performance studies. And I would say my biggest piece of advice is to focus the most of your energy on that department-specific application requirement. Which is not to say that the general application requirements are not important, because they are, but assuming that you have a finite amount of time and energy to work on your application, definitely channel all of it into that creative component, because that is definitely weighted the heaviest. That's the most important in terms of making your admissions decision. Other than that, we don't have any minimum GPA. That's a big frequently asked question. The admissions committee is going to look at your transcript. We want to see what courses you took, how you did in different courses. We're not looking, there's no like cutoff for if you earned below a certain grade point average. We don't require the GRE or any other different kind of standardized test scores, except for if English is not your native language, and if you're not qualified to be exempt, then we do require English language proficiency test scores for that area. And then just to say, I think there are a lot of really cool things about Tisch, but I think maybe just the part that stands out the most is how many opportunities there are to collaborate both within different programs at Tisch and then also in the community. So for example, there's a really cool collaboration with the Public Theater, which is on Lafayette, right behind the building that I'm sitting in right now, the Tisch building that I'm sitting in. And that's a collaboration with the dramatic writing program and with the grad acting program. So they're in residency workshopping new work at the Public Theater. Our graduate musical theater writing program, they have a residency at the Goodspeed Opera House in Connecticut, where they have access to their resources and things that they have there. So in addition to making really great connections with the faculty at your program and the people in your own cohort, you get the opportunity to work with people in different cohorts at Tisch. They're frequently collaborating, working on projects, and then also other theaters and other resources in the New York and greater Northeastern area. So that's something really cool about Tisch, and that's me.
Thanks, Laura. Super helpful. Appreciate it. Nadia with NYU Silver, you are up next.
Great, thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. So my name is Nadia Kelson, and I'm the admissions recruitment specialist for the Silver School of Social Work, particularly the MSW program. Similar to Tom, our office is here as a resource for you throughout your application process, myself included. I don't sit on the decisions committee, so I'm also sort of a slightly away, but in the process resource for you. I would say that applicants are most drawn to our school because of a desire to help others. Our school was founded in 1960, and we've graduated over 18,000 social workers, although our annual student population is a bit smaller, between 300 and 400 students, 53% of who will secure a job even before graduating, and 95% within 6 months. At Silver, what makes us unique, I think, when compared to other social work programs, is that we're able to offer opportunities to both study social work here in New York City, but also abroad through our study away courses and pathways. So students have spent time in Shanghai, Glasgow, Buenos Aires, and others. We also have the Career Design and Social Work Readiness Office here at Silver, which is sort of like our Career Services Center. We're lucky to have one here at Silver because they are specifically focused on social workers and the requirements in the profession that differ from other professions. And they are also integrated into our curriculum, meaning that as a social work student, you're going to be really busy, and we don't want you to miss out on these key milestones in your professional development, and so they come to the classrooms and they speak with you directly, which I think is wonderful. A bit of a TLDR for those of you who aren't as familiar with social work, social workers really aim to enhance overall well-being and help meet basic and complex needs of both communities and individuals. They're going to be found in hospitals, mental health clinics, schools, prisons, military and government agencies, senior centers, public social agencies, legislative offices, and more. They might assess clients, develop treatment plans, evaluate their progress, engage in research, analysis, and community organization, act as advocates, and find resources. So ultimately, being a social worker is really about being a listener, an advocate, an educator, and a lifelong learner. We offer 8 different pathways to enriching your education in this area in the MSW, both full-time and part-time options, and the majority of classes are going to be in person on our campus. We also offer what we call specialized training opportunities in substance use and co-occurring disorders, palliative and end-of-life studies, school social work, child and adolescent maltreatment prevention, higher ed, and healthy aging. So really, with any population and setting that you're interested in, we have sort of relationships with those agencies. And so when you're doing a master's of social work, you're not only going to class, but you're also doing a practicum component, which means you're going out into the field, you're learning through hands-on experience, and then coming back and discussing it in the classroom. And we have about 600 agencies in the tri-state area where we're able to place our students to do just that. Our next deadline is for spring 2025, and that's going to be October 21st. And for a fall 2025 start, the priority deadline is January 10th, and the regular is February 7th. In terms of the application itself, it's an online application. It consists of a statement of purpose, 3 professional and/or academic recommendations, a resume, which we encourage you to include both professional and unpaid volunteer experiences on there. Transcripts are required from any institution you took 12 or more credits in the US and Canada. And for international applicants, there's some more requirements, which includes if English is not your native language, it's going to be an English language proficiency exam. And for those who attended institutions outside of the US or Canada, we are requiring you to submit a course-by-course evaluation through WES. All MSW programs, including our own, do require a bachelor's degree or an international degree equivalent. When it comes to reaching out for letters of rec, I strongly advise reaching out early, like 6+ weeks in advance before the deadline, sharing your resume, statement of purpose, why you're pursuing the MSW, any relevant experiences you have with that person that you're requesting from will also strengthen the quality of those letters. With the statement of purpose, ours is a little different because you're going to be responding to 4 required questions that help our committee understand your motivation for pursuing the degree, your background, areas of interest, and more. So many of our students and applicants come from allied areas of study like psychology, sociology, criminal justice, anthropology, political science, while others return to school as career changers or from unrelated fields, but have evidence their interest in social work through volunteering and community-based involvements. Because of our varied applicant pool, we aren't looking for specific answers to those statement of purpose questions, but rather responses that are authentic to you. Ultimately, just demonstrated concern for others, those critical thinking skills, adaptability, strong communication are all indicators of a solid social work potential. So no matter where you obtain them, we welcome you to apply. The GRE is not required. There is no GPA cutoff, and our application fee is $60, but we do offer fee waivers for those who have served in the US military, participated in a national organization like Peace Corps, Teach for America, McNair, or are facing financial hardship. So if any of that applies to you, feel free to reach out to our office to get that fee waiver code. That's my spiel. I'll pass it on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nadia. I appreciate it. Just want to put in a plug for those fee waivers because I think that's something that people forget to even ask for. So it's always worth reaching out to the admissions teams of whatever school or whatever program you're applying to, just in case there's an option available. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And then we'll turn it over to Jamie to talk about Gallatin.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and talk to you guys a little bit about Gallatin. So I did kind of focus my remarks on what we do for and with artistic students interested in pursuing an artistic thesis. But I'll talk a little bit about Gallatin at general in case there's other folks who would be interested as well. So we are known as the Gallatin School of Individualized Study. We are a school of individualized interdisciplinary study. So students come to us to design their own graduate degrees by combining a core curriculum of Gallatin courses with graduate courses taken from across NYU's many graduate programs. So our students graduate with a master's degree in individualized study. And over the course of their time with us, they develop what we call concentrations. Some recent artistic concentrations include film and the Asian American experience, music diplomacy, participatory geography and placemaking, critical disaster studies and documentary film, music composition and AI, visual arts, gender and privilege. We have a very vibrant arts culture. Students come to us to deepen their artistic practice through academic research, cross-disciplinary inquiry, and professional development opportunities. So we are modeled on an artist-scholar philosophy of education at Gallatin for our artistic students. So if you come to us to pursue an artistic thesis, you're coming to combine academic work with creative work in the arts. We're not a traditional conservatory school. So if you're looking for that more conservatory program, Tisch would probably be a better fit. But if you're someone who wants to be able to continue to hone your artistic practice alongside of your pursuit of more academic and passions and professional development opportunities, there's going to be a place for you amongst our artists at Gallatin. So our program has just over 100 students currently, and every year we welcome in about 50 new graduate students in our fall cohorts. So we're a small community where you're going to get a lot of hands-on touch and personalized support, but we have access to the huge institutional network of resources at NYU. Which is the largest private university in the country. So it's like you're getting the best of all possible worlds, we think, at Gallatin. Advising is a huge part of your experience at Gallatin. When you come in, you will be assigned a primary advisor who's a faculty member at either Gallatin or from across NYU, really, someone who has expertise in your particular fields of interest. But we also have two faculty co-chairs of the program who work really closely with all of our students. We have an administrative director who is also faculty and who works really closely with our students as well. You have me. I actually used to be the administrative director of the graduate program. I love the program. I'm here to help you even before you get here. So you work really closely with advisors at Gallatin, designing your own program of study. It's like with great freedom comes great responsibility, and no one can do that kind of work alone. So we're really here to help you do that kind of work. We also have an incredible graduate writing program with 2 writing specialists who give one-on-one work appointments to our students. They do workshops, writing retreats. So a little bit about our artistic community. It's hard to wrap up in a nutshell. Our students are doing so many incredible things, but there's a lot of different ways to get involved in the arts at Gallatin. We have a stack maker space, which is for students interested in the intersection of STEM fields and artistic expression. The Gallatin Wet Lab is our space on Governor's Island, where faculty are bringing together folks who are working at the intersection of the natural and environmental sciences and curatorial and visual arts. So basically, They're bringing together scientists and artists with the goal of imagining new solutions to the climate crisis. We also have dedicated art studio space for our visual artists in Brooklyn Army Terminal. If you're interested in that, you can Google Gallatin MA Art Space. There's an awesome video about that space. You can also Google Gallatin Arts Festival, the Gallatin Galleries, but maybe the easiest way to get a sense for the diversity of projects that are being undertaken at Gallatin is through our social media, and I'll drop some of our some relevant links in the chat in just a second. So our application for fall 2025, we're going to open it up on October 1st. The deadline for submitting your application, if you would like to compete for our largest, most competitive scholarships, and we are actually offering 3 GA-ships this year as well, that deadline is January 15. If you're not as concerned with competing for those kind of marquee scholarship opportunities, the general deadline is March 1st. I'm going to drop all my links right now in the chat. And there's a lot of information on the specifics about what you need to apply at Gallatin. That doesn't look very good in the chat, but all the relevant information is there. If you are pursuing an artistic thesis, and usually that's about a third of our incoming cohort of 50 students who are, you will be asked to submit also a portfolio and an artist statement and a CV. We do not require GRE. There is a statement of purpose. I'm happy to talk further about that, but also, because we're individualized, everyone's going to have very individualized questions about Gallatin. So I would invite you just to be in touch with me via email. We have info sessions frequently. That link that says more information on applying. There's a link also to our info sessions, to our MA view book, and also to a video that helps you kind of understand what we do. So I'm looking forward to talking. I feel like that's a ton of information already. So
thanks, Jamie, and thanks everybody for providing those overviews. I do think it's helpful to get a sense of sort of things to think about for each school. And then it's a point that I want to highlight about NYU that's unique in that every school has their own admissions office. And so sort of when you're doing your research for applying to NYU, it's a little bit like researching multiple different universities. So taking advantage of folks in the admissions office, reaching out, taking that contact information and not hesitating to be in touch is really valuable. And so related to that idea of researching different programs, sort of figuring out where to go, what to do, for people who might be at the beginning of their search or their journey or their thoughts about applying to grad school. In our office, since we're centrally located, we get a lot of students to reach out and say, I think I want to go to grad school, but I'm not really sure. I'm still researching my options. What are things to think about? So I'm going to turn and ask you all, what are some factors or things that you would recommend for students who are figuring out, should I go to grad school now? Should I wait? What should I do? But in particular, who they could start thinking about talking to in that exploration phase of their research. So Nadia, you're nodding, so I'm going to kick it off with you. And then if there's anyone else who has anything to add, feel free to jump in.
All right, Christy, thank you.
Or feel free to pass it along. No worries.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it. Absolutely. I was nodding for a reason. Yeah, I feel like this question really resonates for me as somebody who did my own grad school process not that long ago. In terms of, I think thinking about it's a great question. I think the first sort of piece is some internal self-reflecting, right? Thinking about your career goals. Do you need an advanced degree for the pathway you're interested in? For a master's in social work, it is the case that there are entry-level jobs you can get without a master's, but in terms of advancement and licensure and just sort of also just financial prospects, getting a master's is an invaluable step in your career. So I think considering, that it's just also, so that's like the first thing, right? Is it relevant to your field? I think also just considering your interests, right? Are you excited about exploring this subject more deeply? It's a little different than grad school, right? Like I returned because I was like, wow, it's truly, I really want to study this day in and day out in addition to advancing my career. And so if you have that passion, it'll carry you through grad school when maybe you're returning to school a little later or switching from a different career or trying to continue right out of undergrad. There's various reasons why, but to sustain yourself, understanding that passion, I think can be really helpful. In terms of people, to talk to, the best way you can determine fit is by gathering as much information as possible. A lot of folks sort of get swept up in the rankings or the names of schools, but that's just one part of the picture, right? We want a program that's going to fit your unique needs and aspirations. So talking to people in advance and doing research. For example, starting with any academic advisors or professors or mentors you may have to gain insight into your specific discipline. And if they might be able to connect you to working professionals in the field that can help further your understanding of what a master's program is going to give you. Looking for alumni, what are they working in? Did they get a master's? Where did they get it? Those sort of pieces, but also just engaging with us, the admissions team, current students and alum. So at Silver, we're really grateful. We have a program where current students and recent graduates offer their time to speak with prospective students about their experiences. There's nothing more valuable than hearing directly from somebody who's done one of these programs, what it was like, and how they tackled balancing all the different components that you might be factoring into whether grad school is for you. The finances, the work-life balance, all the different pieces, right? So I would say take advantage of those. Our office also offers one-on-one appointments, so you can speak with an admissions or financial aid counselor one-on-one so that you can get your more uniquely to you questions answered. So just taking advantage of all the resources to collect as much information as you need to make an informed decision will help you feel confident once you submit that application that yes, grad school is in fact like the next step for you.
Thanks, Nadia. I feel like that I did record it so I can cut the clip and keep that as a soundbite. That was really helpful in terms of things to consider, factor in when you're making that decision, because it is a really big decision. Before I jump to a related question about paying for graduate school, because I think that's another thing that's big in that decision making. I wanted to open up to see if anyone else had anything to add to that response.
Sure, I think Nadia did a fantastic job. Another thing why people pursue graduate school, they're career changers, and maybe they've been working in advertising for years, and now they've decided they want to become a teacher. And how do they transition into that? A graduate program might assist them with that. We have many programs at Steinhardt. People are career changers. Oops, am I freezing? Sorry. That do our nutrition program, or international ed, or our counseling for mental health and wellness. And going back to graduate school is going to give them the education they need to start a new career. Who else should they reach out to? Obviously, reach out to us in graduate admissions. And all of our programs, all of their schools represented here offer information sessions like this, but if they're program specific, where you may hear directly from a faculty member, current students, us, and these are wonderful ways to explore if a program's right for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So related to that, again, talking a little bit about financing, there's some questions in the Q&A about scholarships, job opportunities. So sort of a two-part question, one specific to your schools and your programs. If you could talk about what that scholarship process looks like in terms of the application, how you review for scholarship, if you have typical award amounts, things like that, that would be helpful. And then if you have other general advice about funding for grad school or things to consider when you're making that decision. Sort of related, I'm going to address one of the questions in the Q&A just because low-hanging fruit for me about housing for graduate students, because that is a factor when you're thinking about grad school. Graduate housing is very limited on campus. There are a handful of programs that will facilitate the housing process, and there is an application process where you can apply for housing, for on-campus housing, but it's really limited. The majority of students live off campus, and I can connect with you offline. We've got a few housing panels that we've discussed in the past, but typically housing is not included, so that's a separate external sector. So anyway, going back to funding, who wants to kick this one off and talk about funding in their schools?
I can go first.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, so all Tisch graduate programs, with the exception of, we have a new degree. It's an online MA in media producing degree. That one does not have any NYU scholarships available. Just want to be super transparent about that so everybody knows going into it. You, if you're an admitted student, are fully responsible for funding on your own. But other than that one MA degree, all of the graduate programs at Tisch are eligible for financial aid. All of our departments have what we call discretionary funds, and so they make the awards themselves on both a combination of merit and demonstrated financial need. And it's usually something that usually my colleagues like to point out is you can always appeal. So if you get a financial aid award and you realize that it is not enough to cover what you're going to be able to need to come, if you are offered admission, our faculty really want you. We really want you in our program. So please don't say, I guess I just have to decline this offer. I can't come to the school. Please reach back out and say that award was not sufficient for me. What can we do? What else can you cover? And it is really more of a conversation once you're in the admitted stage, which is, yeah, something else I should also mention is you find out your financial aid award after you're offered admission to the program. So you'll get your acceptance decision, and then you'll find out what aid is offered to you. There's also, if you are a US citizen or a permanent resident, then you can file the FAFSA, which is probably something you're familiar with from applying for undergrad schools. So you'll be eligible for federal aid that way. If you're not a US citizen or permanent resident, then you're not eligible for federal aid. And I strongly suggest reaching out to any foundations or agencies or anything in your government at your own country to find out what funding opportunities are available to you. And something else I would strongly encourage, if you work and you plan on continuing to work full or part-time while you're pursuing your grad degree, talk to HR, talk to your company about what tuition remission opportunities are available for you if you're pursuing grad school.
Thanks, Laura. Jamie, do you want to talk a little bit about scholarship and funding at Gallatin?
Yeah, so like I said, if you're interested in pursuing opportunities for scholarship, the best time to submit your application is before our January 15 deadline. We have 4 what we call Dean's Graduate Scholarships, which are our larger sort of just strictly award scholarships. And those are, I'll drop a link in the chat where you can read more about what those scholarships entail. And then this year we are also opening up, we have 3 GA ships. And those are not just monies to be applied toward the cost of tuition. Those are actual jobs that you are hired for, and you work 20 hours a week in exchange for tuition remission and a salary, a stipend. So those are incredible opportunities, and they're sort of oriented, actually this year there are several that are oriented towards arts relevant work. So one is with our Gallatin Arts Festival. The other is with our STAC community, which is science, technology, arts, and creativity. And then the last one that we have available is for student life. So that's really working with our Office of Student Life and helping them out in particular ways. So I'll drop all that information in the chat. I will say this, after our January 15 deadline, we still do have scholarship money available, but it's just not necessarily for those kind of marquee opportunities. And so if you want to be considered for the biggest awards and get your hand on the biggest piece of the pie, the January 15 deadline is the one to keep in mind. Yeah, and FAFSA also, just be thinking about that sooner rather than later to help yourself facilitate the process and make it as smooth and seamless as possible. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because I don't think anyone has said it, and it's very important for all of us here, is that you can apply to more than one graduate program at NYU. So you could theoretically apply to every single program that you see in this Zoom space today, and you would be considered for scholarship, provided you submit your materials by the appropriate deadlines for all of the scholarships. And then you could kind of compare what's possible across the board at NYU if NYU is your dream school. So just to keep things like that in mind, you have a lot of opportunities here.
Thanks, Jimmy. And that question was in the chat a few different places about applying to multiple schools. And yes, that is possible. Yeah, something to consider. Tom, would you like to talk a little bit about scholarships?
Sure, I'll be brief. We want you to apply for scholarships for master's and advanced certificate programs at the basically the time you submit your application. I'm going to put the paying for your education link in the chat in a minute. Our doctoral students for PhD programs that attend full-time are automatically considered for full scholarships just by submitting their application. But all students should take into consideration this is an investment in yourself, in your future. And graduate school, no matter if it's considered, if you receive a scholarship, there are going to be costs involved. So you think about loans, you think about outside scholarships you might get, internal scholarships through NYU, and perhaps part-time on-campus employment or part-time employment. And you look for personal savings that you might have. All that, you put that together to see if the program is going to work for you upon admission. But our scholarships are need and merit-based. We do have some scholarships for international students. We will be doing a webinar of financing your education at NYU Steinhardt we typically do this before our November 1st spring financial aid deadline and our March 1st fall financial aid deadline. Again, I'm real brief here. A lot of the information shared with the others is applicable to our financial aid, but this link should help you a lot.
Thanks, Tom. I was just getting a chat or reading one of the questions that said the chats aren't able to be copied. So I'm going to see if we can turn on the chat feature for all folks and see if that helps you copy and paste those links. I'll also see if we can download the transcript to the chat and send that out in the recording. So more to come on that, but thanks for pointing that out. And Nadia, do you want to talk a little bit about scholarships at Silver?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of great stuff has already been shared. Sort of the quick and easy is when you apply for the MSW at Silver. In the application, it's going to ask you, do you want to be considered for scholarships? Click yes, everyone should. Some people don't want to be, but most people do. So don't miss that. You want to submit your FAFSA around the same time you're applying, just to make sure that gets processed so we can package you. Once you're admitted to the program, you get an initial offer, the Silver Scholarship, with your admissions letter. That amount will vary depending on sort of the admissions committee review of your application and your need as well. Beyond that initial offer, we also have 70 donor-funded scholarships that you can apply for as well. Those have, some sort of prereqs on what they're looking for from applicants, but the application itself is very short and sweet and to the point that you can also apply for additional funding internally that way. I will say 95% of our full-time students will receive scholarship. 100% of our part-time will receive some form of scholarship as well. That being said, transparently, we don't do full rides at the social work program. I wish we could, we do not. So it does come down to, evaluating not only the resources at your disposal, the offer you receive from us, which will include scholarships, potentially work study options. If you do receive work study as a graduate student, you're paid a bit more than undergrad. So it's $25 an hour, I believe. And as a student at any of our schools, you can apply for work study roles if you qualify at any of them, which is one of the great things about being, in a smaller school within a much bigger institution, is you have more resources in that way to also make connections, but also fund your education. We also do package folks for loans. Loans are usually a part of it. That being said, social work is one of those fields where certain jobs afterwards will what do they call it? Like wipe the debt from your record, essentially, for participating in those roles, because it is a social service, right? So we hope for more of those in the future as well. But I think when it comes to loans, right, we want to set you up for a realistic expectation. And I think that's another area in which sitting down with yourself and weighing your relationship to money is really important. Because for some people, the thought of having to pay something back in a couple years, 6 months out from graduating, stresses them out too much for them to actually be present in their education. And then it might not be the best fit unless you need to get the degree for some reason. But if you can sort of weigh the pros and cons to, sit easy with the fact that maybe there's going to be some loans, then I say go for it. That's what me and most of my peers did in our graduate program. And what I got out of it was well worth the money and the financial stress of loans. So I just want to put that out there transparently for, any of these programs. If you don't get one of the full rides or the partial big rides, then, there's many ways that people make it work for themselves.
Thanks, Nadia, and everybody. That was really helpful. I think being transparent about some of those things and the things to think about are valuable. Related, there were a couple questions about working. While as a student, you mentioned grad students actually make $29 an hour, which is great. So there are a number of on-campus jobs available. I know our team has grad students that work for our team every year. And a lot of the programs are questions about working full-time versus part-time, and all of those will be nuanced based on the specific program. But at the graduate level, a lot of programs recognize that students may be working full-time and tend to have classes later in the day or in the afternoon, or if you have a somewhat flexible work schedule, you may be able to do both. So, and part-time options are often available as well. So a lot of our graduate students are working, if not full-time, close to full-time, to help supplement that and recognize that sometimes the academic and time commitment feels a little bit less than undergrad. Might be involved in fewer things, you might have fewer things going on and focusing on just work and school, which is no small feat, but the option is available. So thank you all for your insight on that information, and hopefully you all can copy those links now. If not, let me know. I want to transition to talking about the nuances or the specifics about applying, and ask a general question that anybody can answer about common little mistakes that you see when people are making their application. I know that there are a lot of things, to stay organized when you're applying, but where are you noticing on your end people frantically reaching out saying like, "Hi, I need help with this," or you're hearing from the admissions committee like, "Look, we can't accept people with these kind of mistakes on their application." So sort of like tips, word to the wise about your application process. Anyone want to start with that? Go for it, Tom.
Start. We've all been through COVID, and we do see a lot of our applicants are writing how COVID has affected their life. And we want you to highlight your strengths. So sharing that this is something that and we're understanding what we all went through during that time. We will get past this with future graduate students, but I think the population that's applying now is many times mentioning how COVID has set them back in the learning, maybe in their undergraduate or even possibly a graduate degree that was not the learning environment that they wanted. So, but highlight your strengths, so what you did get out of an undergraduate program, and do not focus on the setbacks. Also along the lines of, if mediocre grades, we look more heavily at your last years of study, who you were today. Don't focus on a C you got in chemistry freshman year.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
I would like to say a mistake that I see often is, especially along with the creative portfolio, applicants thinking that they can bend the rules, that maybe if their submission goes a little bit over, it's not exactly what the requirements are asking for. They think, well, that's okay because mine is different, mine is special, and the faculty are really going to like this. The faculty are not going to like that. Please keep in mind that this is your first foray into showing the faculty what you would be like if you're admitted as a student. And so they're going to see that as a red flag into you cannot follow directions and you're not able to you are not able to work within constraints, so that you're someone who is just going to do what you want to do regardless of what's been asked of you, which is not going to say good things about you as somebody who is hopefully going to be a member of this cohort going forward. So definitely, of course, if you have questions, if you need clarification on what's required and what's acceptable, definitely reach out and ask. But if you see that the page requirement is 20 pages and you think, well, my dissertation was 150 and I think that they're going to want to read it, please do not just upload that. They will not read it. They will not be excited about that. And I would also say with recommendations, definitely, I think this has been said before, you can put those in right away. And as soon as you add them to your application, the recommender gets the invitation as soon as you add them. So it's not put those in right away, and they can be submitting their recommendations for you even well before you submit the application. That's something that can be stressful if you only add them at the last minute before you submit your application. You're waiting on them to get it in. So add them as soon as you've confirmed who it's going to be. And then along with that, pick recommenders who know you well and are going to say really good things about you. I think that I see a lot of applicants who prioritize people that are celebrities or they have like really big impressive titles. And so that's who they ask. And then it's very clear in the recommendation that they don't know you very well or at all, that maybe they know a family member and this was just a favor that they agreed to write this for you. And that's not a strong recommendation. So we would rather see somebody who like was just your direct supervisor or was just a faculty member rather than going to like the dean that you met one time at a mixer or something like that. Pick people who know you really well and are going to write really strong recommendations.
Thanks, Laura. I think that's huge. And you really hit the nail on the head in terms of following the instructions. Again, the faculty members that are reviewing your applications are looking for people to be in their classes and they want people who can follow instructions. So it is a big part of the application itself is following the instructions. So thanks for that. Jamie, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just to piggyback on a lot of what Laura said is applicable directly to Gallatin as well. And if you are someone who wrote, let's say like you did a 200-page collection of poems and you want to submit it all, but the page requirement is 20 pages, just pick the best 20 pages because our faculty will read 20 pages. They will not go beyond it. So if you submit the 100 pages, they'll just read the first 20. So, you know, just curating your presentation is a really important part of the process. And students sometimes say, well, should I submit? I did these 2 projects and this one's better, but this one's more related to what I want to study. Submit the better piece of work because no one would expect you to have already mastered in your undergrad what you're going to graduate school to do. So just show the stronger work at Gallatin. That's what will be the most beneficial for your application is the strongest work you have, not necessarily the most relevant. And then I want to say at Gallatin, we require 2 letters of recommendation. We get a lot of non-traditional students because in an individualized program, it's like, you know, that can appeal to a really broad range of folks. And a lot of professionals really like the idea that they can kind of cherry pick what they want to do. So we get a lot of folks who are coming out of professional work life situations to come back to school. And they're thinking, well, I'd really like to submit 2 letters that are professional letters of colleagues that I've worked really closely with. That's fine, but I will say Gallatin, even for our student artists, we are an academic program, and a large part of what you're required to do is academic work. So if you can go back to your faculty members from your undergrad and ask for a letter, maybe do 1 and then have another professional letter, that is helpful because our faculty do look to see, is this person going to be able to handle academically the kind of rigor of graduate studies? And if that's not a possibility, totally fine. But I would suggest that you coach your professional letter writers to write a letter for a graduate program and not as a sort of like professional reference. And so speak to the fact that you are great at thinking, that you do a great job writing, that you're creative in these particular ways, right? So like what's going to make you legible for a graduate program in a professional reference? So that's what I would say. And then also like, I would say this, if doing research into the program that you're looking at isn't fun or exciting, just sit with that for a minute too. I tell students like your application is actually your first opportunity to practice what it feels like to be a Gallatin student. And so if it feels like a total drag, it might not be the right place, right? So the application process is nerve-wracking, it is anxiety producing, but also like it's really where you get to kind of imagine yourself as part of the community that you will be joining. So hopefully there's some like enthusiasm and fun and just to kind of like tap into that as a key and clue about whether or not you're finding the program that's the right fit.
Thanks, Jamie. I think that's really great advice. Nadia, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think to round us out, because so much great advice across the board already has been shared, but one of the most overlooked things that I think speaks to exactly what Laura was saying, and also Jamie echoing about this is you showcasing yourself as how you'd be as a student. Proofread everything. Typos and errors are small things that we can overlook. So taking the time to ensure your application is polished and professional is is also a really wonderful thing you can do for yourself. So, a mistake I would say is not giving yourself enough time, right? Enough time to ask the questions you need to have answered, to make the decision, to know how to approach the application in a confident manner, and then missing these little things because you're rushing. I think, there's also, for us specifically, our statement of purpose has specific questions you're responding to. Sometimes we get applications where it's clear someone has accidentally submitted a statement of purpose for a different school because they're not answering our questions, right? So making sure you're submitting the right materials to the correct schools if you're applying to multiple programs, and following the guidelines of each of those programs and what they're requesting, very key. The last thing I would say about something I think that I see people missing is I can see uncertainty sometimes in the materials folks submit where maybe they would have asked a clarifying question, and it would have strengthened that piece of the application. So reach out to us. We do not bite. We are very friendly. We're all here to help you in our various areas of study. So please, please, please reach out. Give us purpose and let us help you is what I say about that. And one last thing would be the letters of rec for our profession as well. I think it's totally important that there's a cohesiveness between all the documents you're submitting, because we holistically evaluate you. We look at the statement of purpose as much as the letters of rec, as much as the transcripts, right? So if you can provide materials to those recommenders that are going to help them understand what you're writing about and the other pieces of your application, it's only going to serve to strengthen your voice throughout them to the admissions committee. So that would be my last piece on that. Thank you.
I think that's a great note to end on. I appreciate all of you providing such valuable insight. So thank you to our panelists for sharing all the insights that you had. Thank you to our attendees for joining us today. If we didn't get to your questions, you know that you can reach out to the schools directly. They're happy to answer questions. That's what we're here for. I think sometimes there's that concern about reaching out and asking questions like, well, I don't want them to evaluate me. We're not the evaluators, so please reach out to us. We're happy to help you with those clarifying questions to help you get to the strongest application that you can. So again, thank you all for attending. A huge thanks to our panelists and to April on the back end for answering questions feverishly, quickly. And I also just want to remind everybody, you'll get an email and a chance to provide feedback. So we appreciate hearing from you all how you enjoyed the panel or things that you think we could have done differently so we can improve these moving forward. So thanks, y'all. Have a good rest of your day. And we hope to be welcoming you to NYU someday soon.